Hey, it's Chris. Today we're gonna do a little comparison video. I've got the 12.9-inch iPad Pro with the M1 chip over on my left, and I've got the brand new M2 MacBook Air, the base model, sitting over here to the right. Now, I'm not a huge fan of just doing benchmarks and reading those benchmarks, talking about specs that anyone can read on the website. Today I wanna think a little bit more in terms of practicality, and so that's what we're gonna attempt. First things first though, why these two devices here? I've got a two-part answer. Number one, they're fairly similarly priced. Again, this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but the 11-inch starts at $799. And then by the time you go out and get yourself a Magic Keyboard for $299 and get yourself an Apple Pencil for $129, you're sitting somewhere between $1,200 and $1,300. The M2 Air, on the other hand, that starts at $1,199. So these two devices are living in roughly the same pricing neighborhood, and you could of course go ahead and upgrade either one to kind of push it further, but under $1,300. The other factor though is what I like to call profound portability. So you got the iPad Pro here with its be anything, do anything modular mentality, which will have you sketching away with the Apple Pencil 1 minute and then switching back and forth as often as you need to. And then you've got the MacBook Airs. Why is it doing that? Every time. And then you've got the MacBook Air with its just open it up, traditional all-in-one ultralight approach. And with the Air, you've just got your traditional way to get to work, which is just to use the mouse and keyboard. There's no Apple Pencil. So pricing and profound portability, that makes these devices natural to compare to each other. But a great question is which one of these is actually smaller and lighter in terms of lugging them around? Well, the Air here weighs 2.7 pounds. I'm not 100% sure what the iPad Pro weighs with the Magic Keyboard, which is pretty heavy, and the Apple Pencil attached, but in terms of weight, they actually feel pretty similar. There is a noticeable difference though. The iPad Pro setup is quite a bit thicker. And as you can see here, it's also wider. That's because of this hinge sticking out over here, and also the Apple Pencil sticking out on this side. But even without it, it's just wider. But as you can tell right here, the Air is actually longer. So ultimately, I guess it all sort of cancels out, but I will say the Air ends up feeling slicker and more portable, just, mentally, I think overall at the end of the day. So here's the million-dollar question, right? Which one of these would I actually rather take with me, either on a plane or to a meeting or maybe to a coffee shop? Well, as you feast your eyes on some of the new wallpaper from the Daily Tech wallpaper packs, which I'll link up down below, I feel like this is really a question of versatility and productivity. If you really wanted to oversimplify this, and some people might, you could really just ask yourself two questions. Do you need an Apple Pencil? Or do you need or want, or will you need or want to use Apple's most powerful software? Because those are the two things that at the moment seem to be really defining the line where you're gonna go one way or the other. Like the Mac platform, just to clarify, that's the only place where you're gonna find some of Apple's apps like Logic Pro, Xcode, Final Cut Pro. Those are apps that are not available over on the iPad side of things, although there are some decent alternatives in some circumstances. So that very clearly makes the Mac a more versatile machine, at least in that specific area of software. Although, like I mentioned in my review, is it? Because the type of person that I feel like is the target audience, the target consumer for the MacBook Air, even the M2, is the type of person who wants to do some very basic productivity. Tasks like email, surfing, streaming, maybe some light gaming. Not really the type of person whose work is gonna make them push their machine to the max in terms of processor or graphics intensive applications. Your average MacBook Air buyer is not trying to push this thing to the brink. So my take is if you really do need to make serious use, either now or in the future, of any of those apps that Apple offers for creative professionals, you're better off just sticking with the Pro lineup. Just honestly, I think for basic productivity tasks, the Mac is probably narrowly the best experience, especially if you work at an office or in a scenario where Microsoft Office is still really the go-to productivity suite for you. If you're doing anything with spreadsheets in Excel, for instance, there's plenty of people who are still very frustrated with the Office experience over on the iPad. So when push comes to shove, the Mac does have the edge when it comes to powerful apps that you can rely on, that are just going to be there, everything that you need outside of maybe creativity. Whereas the iPad doesn't have the same level of serious apps in certain categories, but let's be honest, you're also not going to get apps like Procreate with the ability to use the Apple Pencil there over on the Mac. Speaking of productivity though, I feel a lot more productive on the iPad side of things now that Stage Manager is here for anybody with an M1 chip. Stage Manager's gone a long way towards helping me just arrange the information that I need to access quickly and switch between quickly in a better, quicker, faster, more usable way. Not everyone likes it. I happen to be somebody who really likes it. And I like that I can use that to plug into an external display now and multitask on both my iPad and the external monitor. Because plugging into and using an external display really was exclusively the domain of the Mac until just recently. So that's really what makes this tough. I mean, they're both very capable. There really is like 95% overlap in terms of what they can do or what the hardware could do, but the iPad is just gonna be more modular, more adaptable. It can fit into more scenarios and situations and adapt to your life. You can personalize your experience a little bit more with the iPad, but there are times when push comes to shove in certain scenarios where you have to stick with the MacBook. In either case, if you're interested in learning how to be more productive within the Apple ecosystem, I'm actually working on a productivity course that will help Apple users get more done, be more effective, faster, with less burnout. That's a course that's gonna come out in the next maybe 2 to 3 months. So if you wanna get notified when that comes out so you don't miss it, I'll leave a link for that down in the description. All right, let's talk about a few other hardware considerations. So let's start with the ports. The iPad Pro itself has one port. It's a USB-C, it's Thunderbolt. You can connect stuff, works great for your external drives. And if you need more ports, you can throw in something like this Stego hub from 12 South. I've got the Mini here. I'll link it in the description for you. One thing I like about it is that you can plug it in and use this extension cable to kind of sit it out of the way, which is cool. And then if you add the Magic Keyboard, you also have a charging port in the back left corner there, which is nice because the cord runs out the back of your desk, so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You can't plug anything useful into it, it's just for power, but still, better than nothing. Frees up your actual port. The MacBook Air here has a bit of an edge without having to use any kind of hub or adapter. That's because it comes with 2 ports. Now, I mentioned in my review that I actually have 3 things that I'd like to plug in when I'm at my desk at any given time, so that's kind of a bummer. Unfortunately though, the ports are both on the same side. I wish they had put 1 port on each side. That's just a slight little gripe, but otherwise, not bad. What about battery life? That's kind of important, right? So if you're taking this with you and you're not around a charger, let's say you are traveling, right? You need that profound portability to actually get some work done when you're on the road. Well, which one's gonna last you longer? I think hands down here, it's probably gonna be the Air. I say probably, I think it will be the Air. The iPad Pro, especially here, getting close to a year of use, the battery is getting me through a lot of the day, but oftentimes I'm needing to charge it by 5 o'clock. The Air, on the other hand, wow, it's rated for up to 18 hours. I'm not sure that I'm actually getting that, but I'm certainly going the full day without needing to charge it, doing that light productivity work. So if push comes to shove and I needed to use this for a long time without an outlet nearby, or I didn't have any backup power to bring with me, or didn't want to bring some extra brick, right, in my backpack to plug in, I'm definitely reaching for the Air here. And then there's charging. You can go up to 67 watts through the MagSafe connector on the M2 Air here. And the iPad Pro, even the Pro, is only 33 watts max speed. So really in the battery department, the M1 chip here in the iPad Pro, it can't compete with the M2 setup. But just in case the battery has you rethinking the iPad Pro purchase, look at this. Let's talk about screens. The iPad Pro has a mini LED display. It's 120 hertz, it's got Pro Motion, and it gets bright, 1,000 nits of brightness. The M2 MacBook Air just cannot compare. It's a 13.6-inch LED IPS Retina display, which is fine. It's great for just light productivity, the kind of stuff that we've been talking about this whole video. But it only has 500 nits of brightness max, and it's only 60 hertz for its refresh rate. Both factors that should have the people who are like, well, I need to do really professional things on this M2 Air here. Well, no, this isn't designed for like super Hollywood level renders and whatnot. This thing only has 60 hertz refresh rate and 500 nits of brightness. Now, subscribers know I throw a paper-like screen protector on my iPad Pro always because I optimize for using the Apple Pencil. To me, it makes sense. I love it, even with this mini LED screen. Still looks great. If all I did all day was just sit there and watch HDR content, that might be a different story, but I actually use this thing to do creative work. And it really almost doesn't even need to be said, but there's a tri-camera setup on the back of the iPad Pro, which you're just not gonna find on the Air. And before you scoff and you say, well, who would ever need to use those cameras? Why wouldn't you just use your phone? Looks dorky. This is not a camera. Well, yeah, but it's really nice to be able to shoot some video in your own home or your business and not have to airdrop it. It's already there, so you can open up LumaFusion or iMovie, edit it right there, export it and publish it all off this one device. There are people out there using that workflow. In terms of security, we've got Face ID and Touch ID. Which one is better? I don't know. At this point, I like them both. They're both pretty convenient. I'm really not gonna make a judgment in this video as to which one's better, but I will say, if you're OCD and you can't stand fingerprints, don't get the midnight color of the M2 Air. That should go without saying. You've probably seen all of those videos. But the white Magic Keyboard does have its own issues staying clean. I've had to use a magic eraser on here a couple of times to get rid of some stains and colors and different things that this white color has picked up. I'm not gonna do a whole speaker test, but I do like the speakers, the way they sound on the iPad Pro here better as well. So if that matters, there you go. But honestly, I'm not gonna really be listening to anything outside of my headphones personally on either of these devices. A note about the keyboards though, because the keyboards are very similar in terms of the switches. I've said before that the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro is just one of my favorite typing experiences ever. There's just something about it that makes me love typing on it. And that hasn't changed, although I've been picking up the MacBook Air a lot recently because it's so great to type with as well. I will just point out, you get this row of function keys over here, which you don't get over on the iPad Pro. So if you want quick access to control the things like brightness on the screen and voice dictation, I like this button right here, F6 with the moon. Push that to get right into your focus modes. That's pretty cool hardware and software integration, etc., etc. But you can't come over here on the iPad Pro and just do a lot of that in the control center as well. But what about when I don't need to be profoundly portable, right? I'm just back at the desk. And sometimes, these devices, you need both, right? They're kind of like multifunctional in that way, in that it's not just a desktop that's parked at your desk all the time, always. You can also pack it up, stick it in the backpack, and head out and do something. But when you come back, which one do you prefer to have at the desk? Honestly, for a full desk setup, I'm still preferring a Mac, probably mostly for those apps that I mentioned earlier, but also because Stage Manager is just more limited in terms of how many apps you can have open at a time, 4 on the iPad itself and 4 on your external display, so 8 total. Whereas over here, basically there's not any limits. It's just when things start slowing down. And then there's the whole, well, aren't they just better together thing? They've been sitting next to each other this whole video, and it's pretty cool that I can just use the same mouse to control both devices. It's over here 1 minute, it's over here the next. I've talked about that feature a lot, which is called Universal Control, which lets you use one mouse and keyboard to control up to 3 different Macs and iPads in one setup. And so it's pretty cool to be able to take both of these, and if you only have one now, you could plan on getting the support device later on a trip and have a pretty awesome setup wherever you go. And of course, the benefit of Universal Control is that it lets the Mac be the Mac and the iPad be the iPad. No more like Sidecar does this just become an extension of the Mac. You can still use the Apple Pencil. You can still use iPad-specific apps like Procreate and absolutely crush whatever it is that you're working on. So really like that. Universal Control is awesome. So at the end of the day, which one should you get? I hope this video has sparked some sort of idea that's helpful in that direction, but I will say, get the one that lets you get done the work, the things that you need to get done, because like I said, there's 90 to 95% overlap in what these things can do, but it's that 5%, that's the exclusive stuff, whether you need the Apple Pencil and the apps that go with the Apple Pencil, or whether you need those specific high-end apps that you can only get over on the Mac, or you just need a little bit extra oomph at your desk, with the desk setup and external monitor and the multitasking. Those are the questions. Whichever one you decide on, I will tell you this, you should absolutely sign up for the Daily Tech newsletter. Why? Because it comes out on Fridays and it delivers very quickly, doesn't waste your time, one app, one accessory, and one really awesome service that you've never heard of before. It puts app and accessory discovery on autopilot for you. It's free. why wouldn't you do it? We also have a podcast. I'm going to pick this discussion up on the podcast, and we'll talk a little bit more about this subject if you just haven't had enough, not to mention what else is going on behind the scenes at Daily Tech. Once again, this very wallpaper pack, which is brand new and has 6 different cyberpunk city scenarios for you to check out, is available at the link down in the description, along with 9 other really great brand new wallpaper packs as well. And you can actually get them all as a big bundle if you want to save some money now. So that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching today, and I'll catch up with you in the next video. Later.